good taste. What is good taste? What is attractive aesthetic? Something that draws you into a book or a movie or an idea, a poem, anything procured from another human or nature. You could be inspired, I guess, how trees grow. What is the opposite of inspiration? The opposite of inspiration, I'd say, is something that has been done so many times, like dystopias. And that's great if you're into dystopias, because there is a plethora of dystopias out there. And, it's kind of run its course for me. I don't really care for any more of those. And the dramas and the cop shows, they're insipidly predictable, cookie cutter type thing. I'm super stoked on my little phone holder that I grabbed from my house. I'm just waiting for it to fall off where it's clipped to in my Prius. But about taste, it is very interesting to me how something that has been done so many times people can still find fascinating. And lots of those shows, people aren't even really into the show. They just want some kind of background noise or something, from what I've perceived from a lot of people. When I get into a show, it's because I am drawn in and hooked. And I'm either obsessed or I just give up on it and I'm like, this isn't worth my time. I'm not engaged in the story. So that's kind of the basis for my perceptions of aesthetic. And aesthetic is also based on perceptions and what you think of the author and your preconceived notions of what the story is, if it's a reenactment of something, and also if it aligns with your values, or maybe it's having nothing to do with values. Anyway, this is a very vague way of describing aesthetic and good taste. Poor taste is ubiquitous. There's so many things on this earth that are just poor taste, and which is truly unfortunate. But a lot of things are insipidly predictable. What do I mean by insipidly predictable? Insipid is poor taste, and predictable is, well, you know what predictable is. It's like, it's predictable if people, I don't know, what's a good example? So insipidly predictable, a good example of that would be, you are driving to work and some jackwagon's just tailgating you or annoying you or like frustrated around you. Impatience is insipidly predictable. Losing your temper can be insipidly predictable if it's something that happens often for you. But that's a given. There's lots of givens. People, exploitation, I mean, that's so prevalent around here. Things breaking down, relationships expiring, everything expires here. And it is nice to have things expire, but they don't have to end in a shitty way, if you know what I mean. Like, they don't have to, even if there is heartbreak, it doesn't have to pine on over the years. It doesn't have to, and we're going to get into more of that as long as you're with me here on these different topics we're going to delve into, because I think more people should be talking about these things. They're very relevant and directly involved in our experience. And all we really have is experience. The closest thing we can say to us knowing something is our direct experience, the primacy of direct experience. It takes precedence over everything else as far as whatever is real. Only the things you can experience, you can account for personally, are real to you. And giving away your faith, now that is bad aesthetic. That's poor aesthetic. If you just give away your faith to some ideology and it's like, this mitigates my fears and makes you feel better, it works for you, it makes sense to you, it doesn't make it not a good taste. And usually years down the road, when it ends up betraying you or other fellow members of whatever group that is, prove themselves to be unscrupulous or toxic people. But the main thing is, you're believing in something that you don't know what it is. And according to someone else's account, it's like selling out yourself to whatever ideology, creed, belief system, and then those things control you because they dictate what is real instead of just this, and being at peace with not knowing and actually embracing doubt and healthy skepticism. It's not like I'm saying be jaded and negative, but it's like, oh, well, this is never going to work out, and that's negative. We're going to work out. It's a balance in between of things work of your perceptions. It's the neutrality, staying neutral. And that's a better aesthetic for our disposition in this life. For our disposition is one of being tossed back and forth and jerked around. It's just how it goes here. And whether it's traffic, whether it's belief systems, relationships, so being able to decipher or being able to wield your choices and make a distinction from those things that you directly experience in this physical 3D thing that we're in, and ideologies, belief systems, which lead all of us astray from the nature of our origin. And a lot of those things are toxic belief systems, which is why they're such poor taste, because they suggest that we are fallen and decrepit. They debase us as a human, or as humans, and then say this is what you need to do for to rectify or whatever what you are, and whatever evil, like they make it like you owe them. It's like they create a problem and then they bring a solution. We've heard of this before. And so it's something to be wary of, whereas you are free of all guilt, of all shame, of all things that people are trying to put on you by just not believing that. I mean, it's probably not true. A supposition at best, I would say. But I don't even want to go there. I was raised religious, and it amazed me how people wouldn't ask questions about it. They're just like, they believe in a God, in what I call the God of the demiurge, and we can get more into Gnostic and Hermeticism, which I'm just skimming the surface of. Well, it's not like it's that complicated, really. I'm skimming the surface of the knowledge that is already there on the ancient arcane topics thereof, but I'm not, I get the basic concepts of it, which is that we live in a place where the gods here they incite emotions among us. They test us, they use us, and they have a false free will thing for us, but they just limit our knowledge and our memory, which is a major thing. If you can limit someone's perception and someone's memory, what kind of free will do they really have if you can't see the colors? How can you choose a color? It's just gonna be a random selection. So conceptually, that's the basis for what my beliefs are around that. And that might sound like kind of a doomy kind of way of a disposition with the world, but it's a realist way. And I used to live with my head in the clouds, thinking like, my imagination, like I could make these things come to light and just have no doubts and illusions of grandeur. I don't like the word delusions, I would call it illusions of grandeur. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, creativity, imagination is the new frontier, as Terence McKenna would say, and I love that. It's the final frontier, and it's really all we have. It's the most novel and interesting thing we have. Things aren't necessarily breaking down in an entropy kind of way. They're becoming more refined and interesting. Like they're like losing huge chunks of the iceberg, but the part that remains is worth more than all that. It's a gestalt kind of a thing. Very good word, by the way, as far as the meaning of that. Where the sum of the parts are greater than the whole. Something to ponder there. I love good words. I don't use good words to try to sound smart, but to articulate things with specific, pristine articulation. It is a form of art. It's good aesthetic to speak with clarity and ease, which I'm not saying I've mastered that by any means, but it's always a practice. And we can have practices through our whole lives. And communicating is always a challenge. And there's always a word that is like a piece of the puzzle. Now I know in this video I've been kind of all over the place, and I have so many things to talk about, which is part of the reason for that. I have so many things that just go through my head on the daily, and oftentimes when I wake up or before I even fall asleep, because I've been kind of devastated, to be honest, with my sensitivities and who I am. I've been devastated by how I've been treated by this world. Not necessarily people, but people who are manipulated and are also victims. That's another thing I can get more into, and feel free to ask me anything. But there's no shame in being a victim. That's out of your control. It's not what you would choose for yourself. It's an intrusion on your sentient choice and what you're trying to be and how you're trying to move through this space in life. It's an invasion of all that. It's an intrusion, and we don't really know. It comes back to us not knowing, and we're definitely many things are out of our control here, and we know this. So being a victim isn't necessarily, well, I mean, it is a bad thing. Like, we wouldn't choose that for ourselves, but there's power in admitting what we feel is going on. And I mean, like, manipulated, like, I don't know if you guys have ever had that, where things start to go, things switch back, like, a lot of times, like, switch back on you, jerk around your heart when you think when someone's kind of being flaky on you, but they're messing with your heart, like, things like that. Like, you can't just put up walls and be totally immune to all heartbreak. It's okay, you're gonna get heartbroken here. You're gonna get torn apart by the wolves. It's just gonna happen, whether you can accept it or not. And you might as well just face that thing head on. Go into the eye of the storm. Go into the singularity of the black hole. You know, what are you doing here? Like, don't hold back. If you get addicted on stuff, you're gonna get addicted. And what is the point of addiction but to break it? And you'll be a stronger person for having done that. Let yourself get a little addicted to some things. I mean, in wisdom, don't make it that hard for yourself. But the archons, the demiurge, these beings, these spirits that manipulate us and cite things, they use these good experiences and turn them on us. So I should be able to experience what these altered substances are and that alter my chemistry, and experience what other forms of consciousness are, and I should be able to experience other highs without experiencing like some kind of crash and letdown and stupid bullshit like that. That's unacceptable to me. I do not choose that. I choose to come down and be right how I was before, and there's nothing wrong with that. And in my world, I would do that. In my world, I would have challenges, but they're not like these challenges, and they aren't like the same insipid bullshit that's predictable over and over. Like, once we start realizing this and we come together, we could cancel this whole stupid show. And I'm not talking suicide. I'm talking we wake the fuck up and we don't get engrossed in all this insipid distractions that they have. All the commercials. Commercials are the prime example of poor taste. It's like it's all made up situations to emphasize just trying to get someone money and their product, and it's usually not even that good. You can assume most things online are not that good. I don't know how many things you bought online or even at the stores. They're not that good. I still have some things from online that I bought that are good. They exist, or that at least suit their function and are like have lasted so far. But a lot of things, they're cheap, they're garbage, they're just made to fill someone's pockets. And we know this. But it's important to bear in mind, it's not toxic to be upset and negative at these things. It just builds strength. It builds empowerment. And there is a huge difference between empowerment and entitlement. But also, entitlement is just adjacent to empowerment. And there's nothing wrong with a certain kind of entitlement, but don't project it on your fellow humans. It's an entitlement to just live a good life, have your decisions respected. Just as far as being happy, you can be happy single, but the whole thing is the emotions, the invisible stuff that's inside that makes you feel like crappy for no reason. It's like there's no reason to be hurting and pining over a breakup years after it's over. Like, fucking get over it. That's how I feel about myself. I'm like, sure, I really loved her. Sure. But there's no reason to be fucking suffering over it. That person was mad at me because I didn't use my turn signal, which is very fair. Our awareness is stifled here. That's what it comes down to. And I'm almost at my work. I'm going to start doing these videos every morning at my work, and I think they're going to be more concise and less word salad-y all over the place. But I'm honing it in. It's going to have similar themes, and I'm learning how to do it. And I know that it can be, salient, understanding things, because I talk about this stuff with my friends all the time, and I get feedback and response, and these are important and relevant questions and topics and things we go through in our daily life. And there's a lot of emotion behind them too, because they influence us, and we are susceptible to all kinds of stuff. We easily forget stuff that we want to remember. We have invasive thoughts. There's insipid predictability. There's whatever forces, principalities, archons of the demiurge, or whatever they are that you want to call them, that are manipulating things behind the scenes, pulling strings. The whole Wizard of Oz thing, we know there's something going on. If there's something that is possible in this way, we know there is a much better version of it that isn't constantly like parasites feeding on our souls. And we all know what we're talking about. Like all the depression, anxiety, that's not necessary. We can have the challenges without all that bullshit. Am I right? I'm convinced I am. But my viewpoint changes often. And there is always this subjective reality of thinking when it comes to taste, which is a subjective thing, that, you know, I have good taste and other people don't. Which is arrogant, yes, but if you're honest about your arrogance and you can laugh about it, it's not really that toxic of arrogance. And I think we should be able to make these distinctions and joke about it and laugh about it. And we'll see you all tomorrow.